I'm going to be talking about a little bit of a niche approach to game design and selling games. This is kind of a niche that I've kind of carved out. That at the most basic level, it's fun, okay? And that's the reason why I like to do it. But I've expanded kind of beyond Kickstarter onto Etsy, and these are just my top tips and tricks in kind of navigating this type of realm of game design and game manufacturing. All right, so without further ado, building games by hand, tips and tricks for self-manufactured games. And when I say self-manufactured, that means I source components and create the final product rather than having an outside company do that for me, okay? And then selling those games on Etsy, on Kickstarter, and I'll even talk a little bit about the new TGC Warehouse. All right, so let's get into it. A little bit of background about me. So I'm the owner of Rampage Games LLC, and then my day job is I am a professor at Binghamton University. I teach accounting, specifically auditing. I'm an audit professor. So that's what I do during the day. I get my creative outlet here with game design, because accounting in some cases can be very dry. I'm also a husband to an awesome wife, Amanda. Been married for 8 years. And we have 2 amazing kids, Harrison 3 and Priscilla 1. Harrison is now old enough that he helps me put the shipping labels on the boxes and carries them up from the basement to the front porch. So he's getting into the business pretty young. I give him $1. He gets to put it in his piggy bank every time he helps me with a package. He's got quite a stash so far. All right, hobbies outside of this, huge Boston Bruins fan. I don't know who the fan base is here in Wisconsin with regards to hockey. I don't know if it's the Wild or trying to think what else is close. But yes, Boston Bruins fan, you can hate me for that if you want to. Also a huge Lego junkie. I put in a picture right here. This was actually during my doctoral program. This was my PhD office, and you can see, I don't know if you can make this out. I have a bunch of Lego sets. Here's my Bruins. So I'm not lying to you that I'm a big fan. And it's very hard to make out, but right here are a pile of TGC games. So I even brought my games into school and I would play with fellow students. There's also a yo-yo collection. So I like to do lots of random things. Yeah, I like to and then this is my family here. And then, yeah, okay. So that's about me. Rampage Games, I established it in 2009. The reason why we did it is because in high school, developed a trading card game. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh, but real world, okay? And so, because, when I was in 8th grade, 9th grade, whatever, Yu-Gi-Oh was all the rage, right? But I wanted something a little bit more realistic. So this is the ultimate culmination of it over a couple of decades of work on it. But the reason why I established Rampage Games was for this trading card game, and then it just turned into one game over another, and I really developed a strong passion for designing games. And I don't know how many of you are in this bucket along with me, but I actually enjoy designing games more than playing them. Now, I do like playing them, but I like designing them more. I get much more out of designing games than playing games. So, and then as it relates to the Game Crafter, I've judged 2 contests. I don't know, there are probably a lot of you in here that have submitted to either the Mint Tin contest, I was one of the judges for that, or the Choose Your Own Path contest. That didn't have as many entrants. But I've also participated in many of these contests, 13 semifinals, 4 finals, and I actually did win 1, and that was Abomination, which is a real-time game. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and kind of the background of Rampage Games, is that part of this presentation is how much I'm involved with the Game Crafter, even though I don't exclusively use them for the POD, all right? I'll talk a lot about how the Game Crafter is a part of the process of the making games by hand, the self-manufacture. Okay? All right. Oh, I forgot, I have another slide. Okay. Also, as it's relevant to Kickstarter, okay, that you can be successful making these games by hand and selling them online using crowdfunding. Okay, I've had 10 successful Kickstarter campaigns, raised over $70,000 amongst all of them, and this is the biggest. The reason why I put it in bold, all of them are delivered early. I know plenty of you have probably had experiences with games that take years, if they even show up. All right, I can tell you that every single one of my campaigns shipped 3 to 4, maybe even 5 months early from when I projected. And the big reason for that is because of the ultimate control over the deadlines that we were able to set by self-manufacturing, okay? We expanded to Etsy in 2001, and now it's 2023. Our projected sales are going to be around 10,000 this year, so pretty big for niche market. And here's my little timestamp here. Member TGC since 2010, okay? These are the campaigns that I've run. Now, something to take away from this, these are small campaigns. I would argue these are modest campaigns, all right? 100 backers, 200 backers, 400 backers. The trick is that I don't have to worry about MOQ, right? Because I'm building these all by hand, okay? Every single one of these campaigns were in the black when they funded, and then when I finished production. So I've never had, yes?
For those of us that aren't accountants, what's an MOQ?
Minimum order quantity.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
My sister's a CPA.
Yes.
We all use a lot of acronyms.
Yes, we do.
And I love it.
Okay, good. Oh, and that's something else, you brought this up. Okay, so something in the academic space, when we're doing academic workshops, it's usually an honor that when you're in a workshop, if you don't get past slide 3, that means you have a good presentation because that's how many questions are asked. So, at any point, I actually thrive on this. Ask questions, raise your hands, all right? This is going to be much more interactive, and you get a lot more out of it if you do that. Now, I do explain a lot, so I could also see why you might not have questions, but this is just kind of giving you a background of what you can do when you make games by hand, okay? So where do we fit, okay? I will tell you right now, we have never done the traditional manufacturing route. Okay, I believe John was talking about, you know, you could reach out to a publisher, you can pitch, you can do the whole publishing thing, right? Which involves, you know, interacting a lot of times with overseas vendors, right? Or doing the print on demand where, you know, the game crafter happens to be in the United States, okay? We've never gone the traditional manufacturing route. That means we've never bought bulk, okay? We've never bought 500 games, 1,000 games for any of our campaigns. So I can't speak to that traditional manufacturing route. I'm also deathly afraid of pitching for whatever reason. So I've always just done my own publishing. It's easier for me conceptually, I don't know why, to do all the work and to, from start to finish, designing the game to getting the game into people's hands is easier than pitching to a potential publisher. I know that makes absolutely no sense, but that's how my brain works. Okay, big reason why we don't do traditional manufacturing is because I've seen the horror stories with how long it can take to get games produced, it getting tied up with overseas shipping, especially going, ocean freight, okay? We have done some overseas parts. The only part we've actually done overseas is dice, because custom printed dice are way easier to get overseas at low prices than in the States. But we always insist on air freight. And this is gonna be a common theme with how we get our Kickstarters to be so early, is that we prioritize shipping deadlines, okay? We've also done this self-manufacturing route with the help of TGC, or the Game Crafter, I'm using acronyms again, print on demand, okay? So we could, in some capacity, use the Game Crafter to print parts of our components, such as a deck of cards that go into a larger game that we might put into a tin, all right? And then accumulate them, all the pieces, and then ship it ourselves, all right? So we can buy bulk parts. You all know that the Game Crafter has a huge library of parts. We use the Game Crafter exclusively for that, because when you're crafting games in print on demand, right, you can get, when you craft a single game, they have to factor in all the labor it takes to go and grab a single piece, put it into your game, put it together, right? But you'll see really quickly that when you get to 10 units or 100 units on the Game Crafter, those pieces get a lot more affordable. And I'll show you later in a comparison that when I sit down and I try to make 100 mint tin games, okay, and I have all those bulk parts, it really doesn't take that long. I can get 100 games made in about an hour, okay? So basically what I'm getting at that is that print on demand is a tool that I use. I'm not completely ignoring it, okay? We've also used, for some of our smaller campaigns, a little bit of a shout out to BOF. There's another acronym, bulk order fulfillment, that the Game Crafter offers, okay? And then why are we here, all right? This, I know I'm giving a lot of background. We're here because you want to learn a little bit more about the self-manufacture route, okay? And like I said, we source all our parts and all our packaging from multiple sources. So we pretty much touch everything, right? I'm not outsourcing the game building. I'm doing it myself, okay? All right. So there's 9 here. We've had 10. So Zombie Road had an expansion campaign. But this gives you an outline of what we've done. And you should see a common theme here in a second when I explain these. But when we first entered the Kickstarter market, we went with Elements, which is one of my favorite games that I've designed. What we did is we bought everything from the game crafter and then we shipped ourselves. This was just before BOF was getting big, okay? Then for Brace for Impact, we created our very first Mint Tin game, and we decided to build it ourselves and to ship it ourselves, okay? Then we did Zombie Road, which is a card game, came in a telescoping box. This is when we used BOF, we used the bulk order fulfillment. Then another Mint Tin game, self-manufactured and shipped. Then we did Galaxy Dice. We did some bulk TGC components, such as the cards and in some cases the dice. But then we self-manufactured it, we put it in a tin and we shipped. Mint Tin Party Bundle. We published Swear Mints. They're huge now, but this was early on. They had made the game in the Mint Tin contest and we published them along with Pocket Pixel Artist. We self-manufactured Mint Tin games and we shipped. And then with Aurora, we did another BOF, and then Zombomination and Crosscheck, the last 2 campaigns we had. Mint Tin games again, manufactured and shipped. So here's the key thing here. The thing is when you're dealing with, I think, in my opinion, very, very complex games, I think it makes a whole lot of sense to outsource and have other people build the games. When you're dealing with small games, all right, you can definitely improve the cost benefit of the cost of those games and how much you can profit and position them on Kickstarter and Etsy and trade shows, which I'll get to later. Okay? So any questions so far? I'm always asking if students have questions. So yes.
When you do your Kickstarter, do
Yes.
you have any tips for making it marketable on Kickstarter?
Yes. So in what regard? Like catching initial.
Catching initial interest.
Okay, so the biggest thing that I do is I always put the price of my games on that cover photo. All right? So what I'll do is I'll have a great action shot on the Kickstarter image, right? Make sure you're showing off, the art of your game. All right? I'll put a quick blurb. So what's unique about all our Mint Tin games is, other than the Mint Tin Party Bundle, is that they're real-time games. They play in 3 to 5 minutes. So I make that very clear that you're going to be 100% engaged for those 3 minutes. All right? There's absolutely no downtime. And then the big thing with these Mint Tin games is a lot of times campaigns don't put prices. I put prices because I say $9 shipped, right? Impulse buy. All right? And that gets them, they see $9 shipped, okay, it's worth looking into, right? And so they click on. So one of my golden rules is I always put the price, okay? Because if they don't see value when they first look at your image and they move on, all right, you've lost them. Yes?
How much money did you make off of that $9 game per unit?
Per unit, after shipping,
Yeah,
$2 or $3.
that's good.
Yeah, so back then shipping, I think, I used envelopes and the first class postage was probably $3.50. I'm saying this is a while ago. And then to build the game, it was about $2.88. And so pretty decent margin given the price that it was $9 shipped. Yes?
When you're shipping, are you keeping it domestic U.S. or do you ship to other countries?
I ship across the world. I use USPS. Yep, and I do, and that's a good question because you're going to lose, in this sense, you're going to lose some money on international shipping. What's lucky about this niche of doing Mint Tin games is that you can get international shipping for about 20 bucks, right? So I could absorb some of that cost, at least back then, where I could do shipping included for a Mint Tin game for $9, and then $9 international shipping. And that wasn't too much of a hurdle for international buyers, and a lot of times it comes under the VAT or customs cost, right? So they won't get hit again. Okay? And so this is just a picture of us doing a lot of our own shipping. Okay? Great questions so far. So here's the benefits, all right? I had to get to this slide eventually. And what these images here are is this is our custom cross-check campaign. As you can tell, I'm a huge hockey fan. We created a real-time hockey experience, plays in 6 minutes, 2-minute periods a piece, right? You time it. And we have a little swag kind of updated version here. Okay. The reason why I put this one at the top, timelines, okay? I've been on Kickstarter since 2011. I think I've backed close to 100 projects. The ones that drive me nuts are the ones that take 2, 3, 4 years after deadlines to get them in, if you're even lucky enough to get them in. I knew that when I ran my Kickstarter campaigns, I wanted to earn a reputation that I always shipped early, okay? So when you manufacture by hand, all right, you can source parts. A lot of times you use Amazon or the Game Crafter, and they have a separate parts queue that goes a lot faster. I can get parts in weeks, not months or years, okay? Also, you're completely in control of production. So a lot of times I'd wake up at 4 in the morning before my kids got up, and I'd go downstairs and I'd put 100 labels on tins, okay? Or I'd stay up to 11 or 12 o'clock at night with a little light out in the garage packing packages, right? And we'll get to the cost benefit of that, but I'm in complete control of the assembly timeline, okay? So when I set those fulfillment deadlines on Kickstarter, those are worst case scenario, right? So if I'm launching a campaign in May, and let's say it closes in July, and I say the following May is when you get your games, that is worst case scenario. It's always been worst case scenario. And usually a lot of times we'll get it by Christmas, right? Which is always a nice surprise, all right? What I like to say is you under-promise and over-deliver, okay? Back to MOQ, the acronym, minimum order quantity. You can build exactly what you need, okay? So when that campaign ends, if you only need to make 100, then you only make 100 or 110, let's say, in case there's some attrition in some capacity, okay? It's easy, in this scenario, it's easy to earn a profit on your Kickstarter campaign from the get-go. Why? Because you don't have to buy 500 games as a minimum order quantity. That's an industry standard. I would even almost argue that the industry standard is about 1,000, right? So even if you could get your game down to $5 or $6 a copy, at 1,000, you're looking at 6,000 right off the bat that you have to cover with your campaign funds, all right? What this means is I can set a low funding goal, which means I'm more likely to fund, all right? A lot of these campaigns, like the cross-check campaign, I don't know if anybody's gonna get this Easter egg, but I set it to $894. Clearly nobody's a hockey fan in here. All right, 894 is Wayne Gretzky's goal record, okay? So I set it that low. Do you have a question?
Yeah, as far as your quantities go.
Yes.
Do you ever produce extras for possible retail later on, or do you just fulfill the?
It depends on the goal. It's a great question. So like for cross-check, when I'm not publishing somebody else, okay, I'll manufacture enough that I can make, like, let's say, an extra 50 copies, and then I'll try to sell it on Etsy. But what's unique about it is I don't necessarily need to, because of these small order quantities, if I need to make more for Etsy or for trade shows, it's very easy to do. You see what I'm trying to say? So, like, there's no requirement that I need to make extra, because it's so easy to make a few, 1 or 2, if I need to in the future, based on this model. Does that make sense? So I don't need to buy 10 or 20 at a time. Yes?
So not guaranteed, obviously, but let's say your first campaign goes well, you
Yep.
get 100 copies,
Yep.
then long-term interest takes off, and now you have 500 people who want copies. Would
Yes.
you do a rerun?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you have options, right? Like, I'm not going to say don't do the traditional route, right? There have been times where we've scaled enough that we might go elsewhere and have somebody else that could have a little bit better economies of scale if I needed to get to copies of 500, right? I'm just saying that for the small-time publisher who wants to get into, I'll get to your question in a second, this very low barrier to entry. All right, that's what's nice about the niche. Yes.
When you, like, I see a lot of the things like have like, I don't know, there's stickers that are printed on the tins.
Yep.
What kind of production things do you have in the house? Again, do you have like a high resolution printer? Do you have
I do.
a Cricut or something like that? Or?
Yep, so I have a high resolution laser printer. I have a Silhouette, which is sort of like, what's the one that, hey, Cricut is the one that's more popular. And so actually on Etsy, I do custom design stuff to kind of leverage that, but it's better, I mean, I primarily use it for prototypes and for review copies. But yes, I do have stuff in-house to be able to do stickers, custom stickers. I could print on cardstock if I needed to print on cardstock. Thing is the Game Crafter is so good at, and I've been on it so long, and with their urgent option, I can put together a prototype extremely quickly and have them printed out and have it in a week. Right. So yeah, just back to the low funding goals. The benefit of having low MOQ is you can set those low funding goals, because I don't know how many of you have Kickstarter experience, but when you're running that first campaign, all right, you don't want a $10,000 or a $20,000 goal, especially if you've set no precedent, you have no history of success on Kickstarter. It can be very hard to get over those bars. Okay. Other great piece is custom content. All right, since you have complete control over how many pieces you make, you don't have minimum order quantities. What that allows you to do is you can have multiple tiers for your products. Okay. In this campaign, we had the base game, right? Very simple game. This was $9. Okay, and then we had the Deluxe Championship Edition with the holographic sticker and the waterproof cards and the acrylic pieces and the glow-in-the-dark ice dice. All right, so a lot of people on Kickstarter, they like that premium content. Oh boy, you can still hear me though, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to make. Did he leave?
He was having issues, so that might be why he left.
Okay. All right. I don't know whether or not I should stop or not. But because you have no MOQ, right, you can offer these premium experiences without breaking the bank, right? You don't need to make 500 copies of a premium edition. And what's great about that is when you have tiers, you give backers a choice. Okay? If they want to splurge, they can go for something that's a little bit more unique. Or if they just want the gaming experience, they can go for the more affordable game. The other thing I've seen is that there's backers. Oh yes, it is on.
No, you keep going.
Okay.
You can keep going.
I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Trying to get back up where
Limited
it was.
edition. Yes.
Choice for backers, yes. All right. What happens a lot of times is when I use a pledge manager, such as Backer Kit, all right, they'll add on at the end, right? They'll get the more deluxe game later. But the choice is there, and a lot of times what I see happen a lot is when the campaign gains momentum, a lot of people have a fear of missing out, so they'll upgrade their pledge to the more deluxe version of the game. What's also great about this is that when you've increased the perceived value of the pledge with custom content, you can kind of push out larger margin. Okay? So obviously here, this is kind of a cost leader approach here, that you're not going to have a huge margin, but you're kind of going more for volume. Here you can work in a little bit more margin because there's more perceived value. All right? So I think with all this custom content, the pledge for this game was $29, and I think it probably cost me around $12. So think of how much profit is built in there. Now you lose some of it with the Kickstarter fees and whatnot, right? Whereas this cost me $3 or $4 to make, right? And I'm selling it for $9. Right? So less than $1. Okay. And then down at the bottom, let me just expand a little bit more on custom content. Another thing that backers love is they get something unique. So something that we did with Crosscheck is we allowed you to customize colors. Right? Would you be able to do that if you had to print 500 copies of the game? No. Right? If you went the traditional manufacturing route, even if you did it print on demand, there's ways you could do it, but it'd be very difficult to get bulk discounts, especially if you use BOF. With this, since I'm making all the games myself, it's very easy for me to put in red meeples and blue meeples rather than red meeples and black meeples. Okay? So I'm touching everything. Okay? So for that small inconvenience of switching out a few meeples, I can charge a premium of $10. Right? That adds up quick. Yes.
So for custom content, I know this type of idea is typically locked behind stretch goals, but could you throw in stuff that's not necessarily a set of maybe like expansions or like a bundle or something?
You absolutely can, because you're not worried. It keeps coming back to the MOQ, right? A lot of times with stretch goals, you have to reach a certain threshold in order for that extra content to be affordable in bulk, right? You don't. You don't have to do that here. I think the reoccurring trend you can see here, right, is it gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to have low funding goals, add a lot of custom content, not break the bank with these MOQs, right? It gives you a lot more control over your campaign. You can keep it small. If you remember back to the slide that I had of all my campaigns, they're all modest campaigns. I'm not going to say that I'm a huge success, right? Most of my campaigns average $5,000 to $10,000 between 100 and 300 backers. Okay, I'm happy with that, because on every single campaign, the way I've set up my profit model is I've made money on every campaign, even when I factor in marketing and the promotional materials. Okay. Yes.
So I gotta ask, because I can't get past it, is the labor as a fun factor and not incorporating it into pricing? And you're accounting, so I know that your per hour is not small.
No, it's not. It's big.
And you may have the child labor going at the minute, but that won't last. Like when my kids were helping me with stuff when they were kids, when they got old enough to know what they were worth, they were not cheap. And now they are adults and they are really not cheap. So I understand where you're kind of okay. Yeah,
right here.
That'll help.
All right. So, and that is half my rate. All right, but it's still that's a lot, right? So if I were to factor out how much I make, right? But the thing is I can get, so I'm kind of throwing the Game Crafter under the bus, but I'm not, because the Game Crafter offers a very unique service, and this isn't apples to apples, because like they're mint tin, they have high quality UV printing on the tins. I'm using labels. Okay, so just keep this in mind, but I'm giving you a rough estimate.
Are you with Protospiel, ma'am? Are you with Protospiel?
I don't know what's going on here, but anyway, here's the breakdown of one of my games. I think this is Brace for Impact, all right? Real-time game. It's a mid-tin game. You can see here that if I do a one-off copy on the Game Crafter, it's going to cost me $13.69. All right? Now that's, again, not apples to apples, because that's the one-off price. But if I were to translate it into the 100 bulk price that the Game Crafter offers, it's $8.72 bulk. Okay? I can source tins right now on Amazon, 50 cents a tin, shipped to my door, no extra shipping. Okay? I can get stickers, and I actually get the stickers through the Game Crafter. All right? 2 stickers would cost me about $20, 20 cents. Okay? Because I can take advantage of the fact that I can get multiple sheets at once. I don't have to, it's not one off, right? And that's where you get into some of the trouble with the Game Crafter, is that this mint tin deck, right? I'm using 6 cards, but I'm paying for a sheet of 18. Okay? Whereas if I were to buy those sheets and manufacture myself, I'm really getting 14 cents a piece, right? Okay? Also, Game Crafter has to make money, right? And they're paying people to pull and pick things from, their stock, right? So these dice, right? And especially when you only have 2 in the game, 78 cents, right? I can get dice for 20 cents. And then if I buy in bulk, I can get them even cheaper. Okay? So to make it more of an apples to apples comparison, these prices are accurate if I were to make 100 games. Okay? This is basically what I use for my Kickstarter. Okay? $3.22 to make the game. That's without factoring in labor. Okay? I told you I've gotten pretty good at this. I can make 100 games in about an hour. Okay? I think $50 an hour is pretty reasonable for a rate, but even if you put that up to 100, you're looking at half. You're still looking at half the price of going with something like POD, right? And you're keeping the MOQ down and keeping it low. I can go lower than 100, but then this number is going to go up. Yes?
And to make sure I understand correctly, the POD cost comparison on the left-hand side, are those prices sourced from the Game Crafter?
Yes.
So you're just bulk ordering from the Game Crafter?
So this is the one-off price.
Right.
The $8.72 is the 100 unit price from the Game Crafter.
Got it. And the prices on the left-hand side are like mid-tin 50 cents, stickers 20 cents.
If
Those
I
are
manage
also
myself.
sourced from the game crafter.
No,
Okay.
not everything.
Okay.
Not everything. Rockets, yes. Meeples, yes. Gems, yes. Dice, depends on if I can get a good deal on them. Cards, yes. Stickers, yes. Mint tin, no. But why do I go elsewhere for the mint tin? Look at that price.
Sure.
But that's part of the presentation is that I still use the game crafter a lot.
Right.
A lot of this stuff is good to use the game crafter. But to your point, right? Labor, very expensive. Just looking at making the games, even if it took me 4 hours, you see we're still, right? And then there's also the piece of like when you have to go to do the shipping, you have to factor that in too, right? So the argument that I would like to make is that when you're doing low production runs, small production runs, right, you can get away with a little bit better economy of scale there with making it yourself than outsourcing, at least with here. Yes?
Yeah, it's just good for 8.
Chess X is my best friend
Alright,
in bulk.
that is a full
Extremely
size.
high quality, and I can get the 12 millimeter dice if I buy a couple hundred of them for like 18 cents a piece.
What was that again? Chest X?
Chess X.
Chest X, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, their quality is unbeatable in my opinion. Yeah, yes.
Where would you recommend going for making a double-sided board?
I don't do double-sided boards. I would say the Game Crafter. Yeah, because see, that's a very good point that you bring that up. This model, and that's a caveat of the niche that I do, is good for games with parts and limited printed components, especially complex printed components such as a double-sided board. All right. In a lot of the games that I sell, I'm using simple printed components like cards, poker-sized cards, mint-tin-sized cards, and parts. That's it, right? These are small profile games, okay? If I were to do a larger production game, I probably wouldn't recommend doing this. That labor cost is gonna go through the roof. I think you had a question before I get.
Yeah, I'm curious about the market for games on Etsy.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that, absolutely. Let me just do a time check. I wanna make sure I don't. Okay, yeah, we're good. Yeah, maybe I'll move on from the slide, but I will get back to your Etsy question, and you had a question, yes?
All right, so you're specializing in mint tin games.
For the most part, yes.
The biggest problem for me with getting things from Game Crafter is their boxes.
Yes.
What is the answer for printing boxes if I want to do this by hand?
So printed boxes, I've done bigger games, but you're gonna probably laugh at this, I go with bigger tins, all right? So I have tins that are this big, I have tins that are this big, and I get a high quality label and I put it on, and I have a front and back, and you'd be surprised that at craft shows, for whatever reason, and it doesn't make sense to me because a lot of times I believe that a chipboard box is a higher quality. The ability of them to feel a heavy metal tin tends to have them sell better than the chipboard boxes. I don't know why. That's not my first instinct. But I find cheaper alternatives to the expensive boxes by customizing larger tins. And I don't know if I have, let's see if I can just jump off this real quick. I think I pulled it up. Here's you might see some Game Crafter games on here. Wizard Shelf, oh, there's Armor Up, Swear Mints. Here, like this tin here. I sell the parts too. That's a much larger tin, all right? It can fit a beefier card game. Like we have a space game called Aurora, which is like you build a universe. It can fit like 200 cards in it, rule book, etc. And we just print a label on it. If I go, I wonder if I might not have a picture of it on here, but see if it loads. The Galaxy Dice campaign. All right, designed by David Shepard. It's a larger game, right? See all the components that it fits, hundreds of cards, dice, tokens, metal tokens, is in a large tin that I adhere to label to. So instead of, because it would be a nightmare for me to build the boxes by hand, I find a cheaper alternative to a box that still provides quality, but in a larger sense. right? So I have large tin games. That's basically what I'm getting at. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, but that was a good question. So it's probably not the answer you wanted to hear. You probably want to be like, how do I manufacture boxes cheaply? I haven't figured that one out yet, but yes.
Just a comment on that.
Yeah.
For bigger boxes. That's not just a game factory issue, that is printing across the board.
Oh, I'm sure.
The box is the most expensive part of your game, depending on your components you use. Generally, boxes, expensive.
Yeah.
Finding a way around a box, not a terrible idea.
That's what I did. I found tins to be the solution. Yes.
Yeah, 2010, I self-produced the game with the telescoping cardboard box. It was produced by Marion Box Company in Indiana. And it's the most expensive thing of that thing. So trying to do, and there's minimum quantity is 500. It costs literally like 50 cents more per box if I did 1,000, so I did. And then I had 800 boxes left over at the end. So it's one of those where it's the quantity of scale that you're kind of talking about. It doesn't fit this model for a cardboard box.
Right, exactly, which is why, again, I have to think outside the box. I go with the tins, right? That tin,
Do you remember that Forbidden Island came in a tin? What's the one?
Still does.
The little round.
Oh, it's
Like
one
that?
of those 500s.
Kind of. You're a wide variety of fabricated oak.
yes,
I feel like a bag could potentially be an option too, like 5.
absolutely.
Love letter usually has the same vibe.
Yep. You can absolutely do a bag. See, the point of this, right, is that you get your creative juices flowing. You say, how can I still provide a value in a unique way that saves me money, right? That I don't have to put onto the consumer, right? Yes.
Sorry to kind of circle back to the Kickstarter thing, like the funding goals.
Yes.
Based on like, what are you looking at when you set those? Like, are you looking at a certain unit cost to hit? Is it like I'm just.
No, it's a good question. I know that I can get very, very cost-effective, low quantities, let's say 10 units. So now when I'm setting these goals, I already know that if I sell at least 10 or 15 copies, I'm making a profit. So a lot of times, and this is very unique to this situation, I'm setting goals that I think will get backers engaged more so than me being able to fund the project, because I don't have to worry about MOQs, right? So, like for example, the hockey one being $8.94, Easter egg, hockey people are going to get it. They're more likely to back, hopefully, right? Same thing with these small campaigns. If you set it at 1,000, this is kind of a cheesy thing to do, but if you set it at 1,000 and it funds, and then you get to like 3,000 in funding, you can tell like, oh, we're 300% funded, right? Which, if you put that, be more enticing to backers, right? Kind of playing that marketing game, okay? So, out of sake of time, I'd like to get to the Etsy stuff, but really this is stuff that we've already talked about, right? That even with these small scales, you can still get bulk discounts, all right? Make sure you're pricing it so that you make money, all right? I factor it in that no matter what volume level, I'll make money. So when I get higher volumes, I'm making even more money. Yes?
What's the difference in economy of scale for a large game versus a small game? Or what is
From a dollar amount perspective or a margin perspective?
margin perspective? Between like Square Mints or Aurora or something like that?
So the margins are larger on the bigger games. So the way you make more money on the smaller games is volume, but you're gonna get more because of the impulse buy.
Is there any logistic pain points with like shipping costs or anything like that?
International, right? Because when I do this in-house, right, what's great about the Game Crafters, Game Crafter has a deal with like UPS Innovations or USPS Innovations, right? They can get international shipping for like 10 or 20 bucks. I can't do that. When I'm doing the shipping in-house and I go USPS, which is my cheapest option, domestic, it's great. International, if you get anywhere past 8 ounces, it's gonna be 20 or 30 bucks. And that's going to like Canada, right? That's not going to Europe or somewhere else,
Monday,
right?
we're gonna have a new international shipping option, I think.
Great plug.
Little
Yeah.
leak,
Yeah, that's great.
mail consolidation.
How am I doing on time? I just want to make sure I get the
19.
19. Okay. All right. So, and all this is an example of is I had low tier, mid tier, high tier. So, and you'd be surprised, right? Low tier, $9 shipping included. High tier, $19 shipping included. You had some custom printed components, custom engraved dice, some acrylic here. You can see how that's a little bit of an upgrade. And this one was called our, I think we called it the Elite Edition. We said it was indestructible and would survive a nuclear apocalypse. It's metal meeples, metal dice. It's in a decon container if anybody was in the military, all right? Glass and like waterproof, right? And this, right, this cost $30 to make, and we were selling it for $100, and we sold like 30 of them, all right? Right, because they saw the value, yes?
So I'm seeing the parts, and we had the discussion on the box. What about punchboard, cardboard? Where does that fall in as far as cost and, like is that out of bounds too? Or is it all got to be in
I don't think it's out of bounds if you can portray the value, and what I would argue is that I would use a component like that in a higher tier version. If I go back, I actually did have punch outs in here, okay? I had punch out squares to signify net tokens. It's just what's in the game. I won't go into the game. What was great about the Game Crafter is that I could get them in bulk and then punch them out. They were, I think, effectively like maybe 15 cents a piece. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but there's space for it.
The box kind of throws off the economics. I was curious.
It does. Punchboard's not as bad depending on what custom content you're punching, right? I had something very generic. They were square punch outs, right? They're easy to scale, right? Stuff like this. This is custom cut acrylic, custom printed and cut acrylic from the Game Crafter, custom acrylic meeples, all right? This was a little bit pricier, but it's in the deluxe model, right? So it's not out of reach. Yes?
So two questions. Quick question, bouncing back on custom content.
Yes.
Could you like maybe sell like artwork or like posters, like concept art, like something a little extra, something cool that people would follow?
So what I've done is for my $1 pledge, to get people to pledge and then potentially pledge more in the pledge manager, is I had custom screenshots, right? Like it was a submarine game and I had an artist, it was like $250 a piece, paint a portrait. And you could get that custom screenshot for $1, right? It was high definition. The other thing along with the custom content is in a lot of my campaigns, I'll allow designers or backers to get a custom designed card where I commission an artist to either mock up their appearance and put it on the card in the theme of the game, all right? I don't know if that's necessarily in the line of what you were talking about, but I do offer custom artwork in that regard. Yes?
The other question was a big one. So like, let's say, this is like a poor man doing it by himself.
Yep.
Living in an apartment.
Yep.
How would you go about storing unsold copies and shipping?
I wish I had a picture of my basement. But even before I had a basement, I had it in a closet. And the thing is, again, what I keep going back to, MOQ, you only need 10 of them, right? And then when those 10 sell, buy the parts to make another 10. You don't have to keep 500 in your garage or in your closet. So if you looked at my basement right now, I have, like you saw on that Etsy page, I have a bunch of stock of Game Crafter games, my own games that I've made. I just try to give back, right? I love selling some of the Game Crafter hook boxes and stuff. I only buy 2, 3, 4 copies or enough, because sometimes what I'll do is I'll license designers. So what I'll do is I'll license them and then I'll print the components and build the games myself rather than buy them on the Game Crafter. Again, I'm getting that economy bump. I only have to store 2, 3, 4 at a time, and then if they sell, right, then I buy more. If they don't sell, then I don't buy more, and I'm not sitting on 100 copies, right? So it kind of all comes into play. All right, so I'm getting to Etsy. I'm getting there. Hitting the craft fair market. All I really want to say about this, because I think Etsy is more important at this point, is what's very unique about the craft fair scene, because I know everybody goes to gaming conventions, is that you're the only one selling games at a craft fair, especially a holiday craft fair. And I'm not sure if you can see this, a little small. I have a Philitin inspired by board game candy. I don't know, I believe the Game Crafter does it, right? It was a Gen Con, right? I have, this is like a tools kit that you got from Home Depot, filled it with a bunch of parts, and I say, fill a tin for $5 full of game pieces. all right? And what do I drive in? I drive in kids that like to touch everything. Drives me nuts. They're snotty and everything, and they're touching everything. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, right? But it's still they're touching everything, right? And then they end up like, oh, this is so cool, and they end up going and getting their parents, and then end up buying stuff. Their parents are like, oh, build a game kit, right? So I do a build a game kit, right, from the Game Crafter. I do these gamers toolkits. They're like little D&D survival kits, right? Little stocking stuffer stuff, right? You can see some other things that I sell. What's great about it, right, is that you're very unique. You're not competing against other games because there are no other games there. These are great gifts, right, especially during these craft fairs, all right? The other thing I do is if a kid comes up and he's interested, I give him a dice for free, or I give him a token for free. Then he gets all excited. Then he definitely go gets his parents to get more, right? I know it's kind of, I don't know, is that unethical? I don't know, right? 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 The other thing I do, right, and a lot of it's like it's spending dimes for dollars in my way, right? I throw in tons of extra stuff. If they buy stuff, I'll be like, here's an extra 7-piece dice set. Here's some extra dice. Here's an extra game. Sometimes I bring the single card games, right? I do that, and it costs me a little bit more, but then I'm getting a repeat customer, all right? And I do the same thing on Kickstarter. If I ever make a mistake, right, when I send that replacement product, even if it got damaged and it wasn't me, I send an extra game or two, right? Just go above and beyond, right? Because that few extra dollars is going to make a repeat customer on the Game Craft. I know I'm running out of time at this point.
Yeah, like 12.
Okay. All right, I keep going back and forth. All right, navigating Etsy. All right, big thing, it checks the homemade box. I build the games myself. I know Etsy has expanded to drop shipping, but for the most part, it's still homemade goods, okay? It's still a strong homemade good market, right? What's great is that customers are more flexible on pricing, okay? They know they're getting a unique homemade product. They're willing to pay a little bit more of a premium, in my opinion. All right, and then when they see something unique like a game, there's not a lot of games other than like antique stuff, because I think Etsy you can sell antique stuff too. I found a niche on Etsy that wasn't being well served. And I didn't know if that's because people have done it in the past and failed miserably, or there really was, room for it. And I'll say I started in 2021, late 2021, probably like September. That first year we did about 2,000 in sales. Last year we did between 4,000 and 5,000 in sales. This year we're projected to do 10,000, right? I'm at about, because they also count sales, like numbers of sales. I think I'm at 750 sales, which is roughly 550 orders, all right? So there is value here, and there is space here, and even though I wouldn't want you to, cut me down, this is definitely viable. And what we've also done to expand is we've done custom content. So I got that high quality printer, I got the silhouette, and now I can do custom printing. But hey, here's the thing. When I get to a point where someone orders 10 tins, what do? Well, Game Crafter has always been good to me, so I'm good to them back. I'll get the custom mint tin stickers printed, right, and shipped urgent to me because it's still reasonably affordable, and I get a higher quality sticker, and it's easy for me to get a little bit of a more bulk situation. The other thing, what's cool about Etsy is that they've just started the Game Crafter Warehouse, and I wanted to see if this would work for some of Etsy products, all right? So what's really cool is I can sell on Etsy, and then I can push it to my Shopify shop, and then through Shopify, there's a few moving pieces here, I can push it to the Game Crafter Warehouse. And so what I first started to do, because I wanted to see, is this something viable that I could do so that I don't have to pack as many of the boxes myself, can I push it and can I have the Game Crafter do it for me? So before I navigate beyond Etsy, I think, did you have any other questions you wanted answered about Etsy? Yes.
I just want to jump in. Yeah, my drop shipper contacted me and said as long as you credit the manufacturer and you're the designer, the creator of it, it should be allowed to do it even if you have outside manufacturers doing it.
On Etsy?
Yeah.
I believe you're correct. Yep.
Yeah, even if you're not hand making, I believe it is allowed if you've got a manufacturer too.
What's shocking to me is that if that is the case, why there aren't more games on there?
Right.
Because I bet you could go on right now, I guarantee you're going to have a hard time finding production games on there. But that's a great point, right?
Sorry to
No, but you know, to your own point, I mean, I put games made by the game crafter on there, right, that I didn't necessarily make by hand. I mean, I'm kind of stretching it. It's a little bit of a gray area, right? But that, yeah. Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah, right? Okay. And then I wanted to give, I know I'm cut for time here, I wanted to just, this is how TGC fits the model. I think I've already rave reviews of TGC. Obviously, I've been a huge customer since 2010, used them for so many different things, making games in bulk, using BOF. Basically, if it's at the Game Crafter, I've probably done it in some capacity. And even so, right, tell me more about Warehouse. I was like, oh, they have this new service. I really want to try it out. I'm actually not even using it for games right now. I'm using it for tins. That large tin I showed you, that black tin, is a huge seller. I sell hundreds of them, right? We were like, oh, let's see, would this model work for TGC Warehouse? And here were some of our initial thoughts. What was cool is that we can push Etsy sales to our Shopify store, which we have to pay for, right? But then we can push it to Warehouse for fulfillment. So literally, when a Etsy order comes in for this tin, I literally click a button, right? And it gets fulfilled for me. I don't have to do any of the shipping or anything like that, right? Which is, I guess, it's kind of getting away from what my model is. Right? But we're looking for, you know, some expansion here, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Warehouse, okay? The thing is that when we're talking about Warehouse, and this is something you have to keep in mind, is that, and the reason why I bring it up and why it's relevant to my model is it doesn't really work for small games, right? And this isn't a knock on Warehouse, I just think it's not well served for small games, because when you look at the margins here, if I'm selling a $10 Mint-In game, right, where my profit's probably $4, can I really ask someone to pay $10 to $12 in shipping when I could ship it myself for $5, right, with UPS Ground Advantage, right? And I'm not saying these are really affordable prices if you have a larger margin game, but how do I get around that? Well, I offer bundles. Instead of offering one tin or one game, maybe I'll offer 3, right? So now I can sell for $29.99. They feel like they're getting a deal, and then if I offer free shipping, or I offer $10 to $12 shipping, that's more reasonable because you're getting more product, right? So you're kind of scaling it a little bit. But I just wanted to say that the fact that I don't have to package these has been great. I'm still trying to work on the economics of it a little bit, but the scaling factor seems to have helped. But I just wanted to give it a little shout out for Warehouse because I know it's a new feature from the Game Crafter. And if you set it up right, it's definitely worthwhile, okay? And so far, we've been having some success with it. All right? And now I know I have like 2 minutes left. My golden rules, okay? If you're gonna go this route, make sure you have multiple component sources. I always have at least 2 sources for dice, for printed components, for tins, etc. Create worst case deadlines, under promise, over deliver. Don't do the opposite, okay? And I have a lot of times backers are like, why is it gonna take a year? I'm like, just relax. Okay? You'll see what happens, right, if you haven't been here before, all right? Have multiple tiers, right? Gives backers choice. You can work in those margins. Remember, you're not dealing with MOQs, so you can have multiple tiers, all right? Deluxe editions go a long way, especially for making money. Transparent shipping, all right? For the longest time, I always said that I would include shipping, domestic shipping. It's gotten to a point where that's just reckless, okay? Just make sure you're transparent. Make sure you say, you know, your backers that you're passing on the shipping, you're not making any money off of it, all right? Provide a customer experience. Like I was saying, when I make a mistake, I don't ask any questions. I replace the product. I add an extra swag. When I'm at craft fairs, I go above and beyond for the customer experience. It costs me a few dollars, but I can make a lot more in the future based on those gained experiences, all right? And then this last one here, this is my golden rule. I think someone had a question about making extra product, right? I do the 90-10 rule, 91-10 rule. So basically what that is when I'm running a Kickstarter and I have a pledge manager, okay? I wait for 90% of the replies to come in before I make 110% of what I need, okay? Based on those 90 surveys that come in. And that has never failed me. I've always had enough to fulfill, even if backers buy extra product, okay? And I think I'm right up against it. This is an inside joke from the Game Crafter. Every time I'd come on to the Discord, someone in the Game Crafter would pull this meme or whatever this is, right? And so, because I'm Rampage Games. But thank you so much. Hopefully this has been informative. Thank you for your time.